What is going on? I am the Inked Talker, and we're talking about part 3 of JoJo's Bizarre Adventure, Stardust Crusaders. Before that, I'd just like to say if you enjoy the video, please like, subscribe, share, comment. It'd be much appreciated. Thank you. But we are going to get into part 3, which introduces a new JoJo, Jotaro Kujo, which is the grandson of Joseph Joestar. And just because his last name isn't Joestar doesn't make him any less of a Joestar. I think personally, before ever watching this, when you hear JoJo's and when you think of JoJo characters, I think he is the JoJo that most people think of if you've never seen it. Like, that's who I thought of. That's who if I was looking at something for JoJo's, it was always of him, or maybe his daughter, because that's what I see most of, is him and his daughter. But, we'll get to his daughter way parts later. And we get to introduce stands, which in the most simplistic term is just the physical manifestation of one's soul, if you will. And I actually enjoy, after seeing this, I actually really enjoy, stands are actually pretty cool. My only complaint is that they don't level up, in lack of a better terms. There's only 4 or 5 off the top of my head that get stronger in a way. Without revealing anything yet, they get stronger by, it's not like they train and then they get stronger. It's just something happens and then they're just stronger. So JoJo's Part 3 is about Jotaro Kujo and Joseph Joestar going after, and company that they get, going after Dio Brando, because he is not dead. He is still alive. He has taken over the body. His head, he chopped off he chopped off Jonathan's head, replaced it with his head, and now he has a JoJo body. And so now, he is trying to take out the rest of the JoJo family and, take over the world, become, greedy motherfucker like he is. So that is basically the premise of Part 3. And I think, to be honest, they have, out of all parts that I've seen so far, and all the parts I've seen, up to, I haven't seen 6 yet, but all the parts that I've seen and read, I think they have the hardest adventure so far. It's they have no breaks. After every time they fight somebody, it's literally the next day they go and they're fighting somebody, or right after somebody else is trying to come and get them, and they have to make a journey across the entire world. They reference around the world in 80 days, as a thing, and they have to go from Japan to Egypt to find Dio. But it's a whole jumping up and down, go from here to there, and just not a very fun trip. But we can get into, that was the explanation of that, but we can get into the differences, not really differences, but we can get into what is different-ish about the manga. So, here the first panel, like I said, that these were drawn, the guy drew them, and wrote this in, the late 80s. I think this one was early 90s. So the way it's drawn compared to the way that they've done it in the anime, 20 years later, very different. Jotaro and his mom Holly, you see at the bottom, they don't, they just to me they just look different. Not in a bad way, just the art styles look different. And then you see, not Jonathan. So many J's. There's so many J's. Jonathan, Joseph, Jotaro, blah, blah, blah. But, so many names to try to whatever. But Joseph, he comes to Japan, to go get Josuke out of jail because he doesn't want to leave. But, he comes and he's just I just find it funny that, you see at the end of Battle Tendency, he's an old man. He's just I can't believe my daughter married a Japanese man. He's I fucking hate coming to Japan. He's everything's small. Everything here is weird. And I just find it funny that he's just not about it. And then here you can see that when Jotaro's in the prison, he acquires all these things because of Star Platinum, bringing him all this stuff. And then Muhammad Avdol, which is another one of my favorite characters in here. I really like Avdol. And see, he just his face looks a lot thinner in comparison to the anime, And then here's just the list, if you want to go through the roots of the Joestar family. And I just, I was thinking when I saw this, I was just if George the First and George the Second had a J.O. name, they probably wouldn't have died, because because you can see right there was his Dio killed this dude. Dio killed his dad. You know, he killed Joseph. He killed Jonathan. He indirectly killed Joseph or George II. You know, and then you can see Susie Q, Joseph, gave birth to Holly, and then Jotaro Kujo with Holly's husband. But here you can see the star on the back of their necks. You know, that gives not gives away, but that shows that they are born of the Joestar bloodline. They all have that birthmark on their neck. And I just put this in here because, like I said, every time something crazy happens, that they're just like, it's just unbelievable. But they're just like, that guy, Dio took my great grandpa's body. He took my grandfather's body and put it on put his head on that body, and now he's a Joestar. And he's just like screaming in this restaurant. And then here, Kakyoin, you know, Kakyoin just looks a little bit. I think it's just the eyes that look different for Kakyoin, the way they're drawn here versus the way he was drawn in the anime. And then, like I said, you know, each stand is named after a different thing. In this one, they're named after, you know, the tarot and the 9 Egyptian gods and things of that nature. You know, and then when we get to the next arc, everything is named after, you know, bands and named after bands. They're named after songs. They're named after this and that. Some of these are named after bands, but it's like you have to go, like if you go into the wiki and you look up, there's actually, because I can't find it in English, but he did interviews where he's like, oh, this person's named after this and this person's named after this, and there's a panel where I'll show who's named after what. And then the only dude that I think is really looks exactly like how he does in the anime is Polnareff, which it's not weird. It's just, you know, I was just like, huh, that's interesting that he looks dead ass identical in a way to how he did in the anime. And then this is the orangutan that, you know, they found out that orangutans. Well, actually, you know what's weird is they were like, oh my god, this orangutan has stand powers, but then when they get to, you know, Iggy, I don't know why they were surprised. They were like, oh, this dog has stand user powers. I'm like, y'all already fought that orangutan that had stand powers, and it's not the only animal to have stand. But when they get to have that hotel, you know, Polnareff gets his leg chopped, you know, and they censor that out in the anime, which, you know, I don't know why. But and then here, when Polnareff gets tied under the bed when he's in his hotel room, and that clerk boy, or bag boy I should say, comes to bring him bag or check in on him or whatever, he gets his whole face sliced off, and you can see that here. And I only put this in here because I thought it was funny when you watch the anime when Kakyoin is eating that, well, who you think is Kakyoin is eating that chair, and he's just like lick. And it's like 20 seconds long. They just animated for like 20 seconds just going back in between Jotaro and him, and he's just like lick. I was laughing the whole time. I was like, what is this? And then Jotaro realizes that it's not him, and he damn near punches his jaw straight off his face. You know, and this is when Kakyoin tries to get it. Well, the Kakyoin imposter tries to get away. And turns out he, you know, JoJo's, or I'm just going to say each, because every time I say JoJo's, Jotaro goes after him, which it turns out to be this fat lady clutching that dog, which she ends up killing, ripping the dog's head off, which they blurred that out in the anime. And then here, Iggy just got the feels when they killed Iggy. Spoiler, but you know, if you haven't seen it, but I'm just saying, disappointment. I liked Iggy. And then here's Mariah, you know, in the end, like when they did. So apparently, I was trying to see like when they did a color redraw when I guess they released it digitally, when they did reprints of it. So the creator Hirohiko actually did all the coloring himself. From what I was reading, is he's the one who did all the coloring initially. And so in here you see that Mariah is actually wearing purple and has blonde hair, you know, but in the anime she has grayish white hair and a red top. But in the manga, you know, she has a crop top on in the anime that shows her stomach, but I think in here it doesn't have it, which, you know, neither here nor there. But she apparently is named after Mariah Carey. You know, so each character is named after something musical. I guess he's really... It kind of shows me that he must be really into music, because everything is named after, like, late 80s to, like, now-ish musicians and songs. And so he must really be into, like, Western music. And then here's the last one. I think this is the last panel, is when Pet Shop. So, you know, Pet Shop, like I said, in English, I don't, like, they changed up the names, like, because in Japanese, like, when you read this, the names are one thing, but if you watch the anime, they're named something completely different in English. But Pet Shop, if I'm remembering right in English, you know, there's two dogs go under the fence, and then Pet Shop kills those dogs, and you see him ripping his eyes out, and then Iggy here is like, I'm just gonna leave that dude to, you know, whatever, but he saves him. But that's the last for that. But the only thing is, I was hoping to find, because it makes some light novels after the fact, and I couldn't find it in English, but they actually have a light novel that shows the story between Iggy and Avdol when Avdol goes to America. I think he said he goes to New York City to find Iggy, which, you know, I don't think he's named Iggy, but it was like the adventure between them finding each other. I guess him trying to capture Iggy, you know, since they know he has a stand. But that is it for part 3, and we will be getting into part 4, which is Diamonds is Unbreakable, which I think is, to be honest, has probably my favorite story out of the JoJo's stories so far. Like, half of it is just like them going around adventure, and then the other one is like this murder mystery, which I think is pretty cool. So we'll be doing that next. Otaku out.